Can I start with, let's just talk about the mayhem that's happened this past weekend in UFC 286, especially the main event, Leon Edwards versus I've forgotten his name, Kamaru Usman. Kamaru
Yeah.
Usman. Listen, um, okay, I personally thought that for me it would have been a hard decision to make. If I was a betting person, I probably wouldn't have betted at all. Um, but if I had to bet, if I was forced, if my life depended on it, I would have gone for the likes of Kamaru Usman.
Yeah, going into the fight, before the fight happened, I actually get that question a lot. Like anytime there's a main event fight and I go live on Instagram, people will ask, "Who do you have? Who do you think will win?" And I told people Usman, and I told them the reason I felt Usman would win was because of the last performance. The last time they fought, I felt like Usman was winning on the card. I felt like he made a mistake. He got knocked out. That was it. And then, you always have that question, is it a fluke? Was it a lucky shot? I don't really know if I would consider most shots lucky. I think that you can get beat up and have one skillful shot land, even if it seems like it came out of the blue. It's not like he accidentally knocked the guy out. That was the intent, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
sure.
but going into this particular fight, it's weird because Usman spent so much time going for takedowns. He was just getting stuffed over and over and over again. And anybody who's done MMA wrestling or worked on trying to take someone down who just simply doesn't want to get taken down, that is exhausting. It is very tiring to
Yeah,
shoot in for a single, shoot in for a double, and then get stuffed, or you wind up really trying your best to try to muscle this person to the floor, and you can't. And then now they really, all they kind of had to do was mostly escape and lay on you. You put in 90% of that effort. Um, and then, of course, you have these weird moments in the fight. Like, for instance, Usman goes for the takedown. And while they're by the cage, Edwards grabs the cage blatantly, not even like a little bit. Like he's
hmm
holding on with his fingers to not get taken down. And then he's able to peel him off the cage. But then as soon as he's able to peel him off the cage, then the referee steps in and says, "Oh, point deduction," right? Which is kind of weird because it's like, shouldn't you have stopped it before he got ripped off the cage?
exactly,
Like
exactly. Yeah,
he put in all this time, work, and effort. Then you stopped what could have been a fight changing moment to take the point away. And I'm not saying, obviously the point deduction is a huge thing, right? But who knows what could have happened had that match not been stopped right then when he was able to finally secure a takedown off that cage. It's little weird stuff like that happens all the time. But at the end of the day, hey, he won. That's all there is to it.
oh, no.
Whether
Yeah,
whether we like it, whether we don't, whether you're an Usman fan, whether you're an Edwards fan, at the end of the day, he did win the fight. That's
yes,
pretty
yeah,
much it. And the old saying is what, you have to beat the champ to be the champ, right? Well, he's the champ. Like, you got to beat him. Like, you didn't.
yes,
Sorry, it
yeah,
sucks. But it leads to more interesting fights later down the road, because now there's a potential of seeing Usman versus Wonder Boy. And I think that would be a very fun fight to watch. And it would solidify, if, I don't think it'll happen, and I'm a huge Wonder Boy fan. But if Wonder Boy is able to beat Usman, that means he gets a legitimate title shot. There's
Mhm.
no way you cannot give him a title shot if he beats Usman. It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, no. Yeah, I get that, but then when you talk about the title shots, who gets and who doesn't get it, we now move into Colby Covington, and Dana White confirmed it in the post-fight press conference.
Well,
Yes,
I
Colby
mean, when you're
Covington.
looking at,
Yeah,
like, Covington has been just kind of sitting, waiting anyway. So
yeah.
like, it's if I looked at this matchup the way that it's most likely going to go, you're going to see Edwards versus Covington, and you're going to see Usman versus Wonder Boy. If Wonder Boy beats Usman, then he's going to fight the winner of Covington versus Edwards. That's just how I see it.
Yeah, yeah. I hear what you just said, but then you got what's his name, Covington, who was doing an interview, I think both for Area One, no, not Area One, it was for James Lynch, and then later on for the Submission Radio guys from Australia. I think in both cases it was calling Leon Edwards Leon Scott. Basically saying that Edwards is ducking him, basically avoiding him. I thought, well, hold on, he's not necessarily avoiding you, but I think Edwards, before all of this, Edwards probably was having really bad luck trying to get and secure a fight, to get a fight to actually happen. The opponent would pull out because of injury, or maybe the fight would be cancelled for one reason or the other. But he was having a little bad luck at some time, so at one point. So I think now he's kind of like, let's say, enjoying his success, enjoying his victory, and he wants to now call his shots, which is understandable because you've worked hard to get to the position that you're in. Now, so you're enjoying the privileges that comes with. So, I mean, in your opinion, who do you think it should be, Covington versus Edwards, or do you think it should be Masvidal? Because he did say he wants to fight Masvidal. Edwards did.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. So first, I never could stand the politics of asses in seats. The politics of asses in seats is basically, you might have a guy who is ranked number 10, but he's electrifying and people absolutely love him, right? Yes. Like Khamzat is a great example. Khamzat, when he was coming up through the ranks, he was just an electrifying guy, and he's just mauling through people, right? It's not even close. It looks like he's bored, right? But he's one of those guys that they wanted, like they did this so many times before. They did it with Paige Van Zandt. They did it with Sage Northcutt, where you have somebody who's got this celebrity star power and they want to push him up a little too fast, too far, too soon, right?
Yes.
Meanwhile, you have guys who are very talented, but people just simply don't know them. Like, even if they were main card guys, they were like, all right, well, I guess I saw that guy fight once or twice, and that guy could be like 8-0. But they won't give him the shot because he's not the one that's going to put asses in seats, even though he's ranked higher than someone else who has more star power. No other sport does that. You're not going to go to the World Series and then all of a sudden they go, you know what? These guys over here won the pennant, but you're just not that popular. So I'm sorry, you can't go to the World Series. We know you did everything you needed to do to get from point A to point B, but we're going to go with this team over here, even though they have like a 50-50 record. Never happens. Never happens in any sport. But yet in MMA or fighting, any combat sport, really, that's been kind of the status quo. I don't think that we should allow fighters, especially the top guy, to make that decision. I'm sorry. I know that you want to fight. Like, let's say hypothetically, every fighter right now had the ability to just pick and choose whoever they wanted to fight. They're always going to pick the guy that's going to make them the most money.
Yes.
Because you're only going to be on the top so far. That's not fair. I'm sorry. That's not fair. That's not fair to how this actually works. If that was the case, we would have nothing but circus fights all the time because people just want to see them. And the UFC has done this before. And it's worked sometimes, like with Brock Lesnar, for instance. I think Brock Lesnar's third fight, maybe fourth fight ever in MMA was a title shot. He went and jumped leaps and bounds over guys who had been in the UFC, who worked their way up the ladder and had double-digit fights, yet they didn't get a shot because Brock Lesnar was going to put asses in seats. That's a stupid fucking system. Sorry. But that's
no, you can swear, you can curse what you like.
But that's a stupid system. It's dumb. You don't get the choice. It should be based off of merit. Your rank.
Yeah.
That's it. That should be what it's based off of. And of course, if the number 2 guy can't take the fight, guess what? We have the number 3, 4, 5 guys waiting in the wings if they're available. I get it. Sometimes it's difficult to work out who your reserve is going to be, mostly because of things like they might have had a fight within 6 months where they themselves were injured, knocked out, training camp, a lot of factors, right? Or even if they can. Certain guys just shouldn't take fights. If you're the number 4 guy, then all of a sudden this opportunity arises and they say, hey man, we want you to fight for a title shot. You might not be ready. And that might be your shot, but if you don't get a full training camp, that's not fair to you. So it's very tricky. I get it. But at the end of the day, fighters shouldn't get to pick and choose who they feel like fighting. That's not how this should work. Unless it's the fighter who is the challenger, not the person on top. The person on top, you don't get a choice. They're going to give you a guy. You have to fight them because you're the champion. That's all there is to it,
Well, Rob, you say it doesn't happen in any other sport. Or in reality, do you mean it doesn't happen in any other organization except the UFC? Because
no, boxing has done it too. Last time we were on here, actually, we talked quite a bit about this, about people are going to pay for the money fight. And we talked a lot, mostly about the Paul brothers, right? But people are going to pay for certain fights and they're not going to pay for others. boxing has done this before. Like even great boxers have been accused of cherry picking their fights. Like I'm a huge Roy Jones Jr. fan. Love Roy Jones. Like I used to watch him as a kid. I liked his swagger in the ring. I loved his timing. I loved his ability to be able to manipulate the ring. I loved watching Roy Jones fight. It was beautiful. And I especially liked him fighting Mike Tyson, which, for lack of better words, was more of considered like a exhibition circus type fight on a circus type card. But to watch those two guys, one, I felt like Mike Tyson in that fight redeemed himself a little bit from his antics and behavior in the ring from previous fights. Like, for instance, when he bit Holyfield and stuff like that, right? But there was a mutual respect in there, and you got to see them almost spar. Like they were hitting each other, don't get me wrong, but it was like this beautiful sparring session where you have these two conflicting styles. Mike Tyson having this like short, big body movement, head movement game where he's taking these big looping shots, right? And then you have like Roy Jones, a little more finesse. Like these guys back in the day would have never fought each other because they weren't even close to the same weight class, but now that they're older, they kind of meet in the same weight. I liked it. But yeah, I mean, you see it in boxing all the time. You really only kind of see it in combat sports. Like you just don't see it in, like, I guess you could say, team sports. You're not going to see it in baseball. You're not going to see it in football. You're not going to see it in soccer. You're not going to see it in hockey. It just doesn't work that way. Whereas in combat sports, when you have these individual sports, you see that sometimes. Hell, you don't even really see that in tennis. Tennis doesn't work that way. Like that, you're in a tournament. Like you will face the next person who earned their spot there. Like it doesn't matter if it's the match that's so exciting. It just is what it is. So I don't know. I see it more in combat sports, in my opinion.
But you see, the ranking in the UFC, okay, I say the UFC, but there's other organizations, Bellator One Championship, PFL, Cage Warriors, Raw Fighting Championship, and so on. I've read the ranking, and I try to just so I could fully understand how the ranking system works in combat sports. I've kind of investigated and seen let me just say that the ranking in combat sports is actually done by, okay, your wins, and also how many wins and losses you have, but also how popular you are. Is that really the case?
I mean, it seems like it, to be honest. Like, certain, the asses and seats theory isn't really a theory. It's been proven time and time again. There have been plenty of guys who should have probably retired, but they were so popular that where the UFC, with some people, would have already kicked them out, kept them because they were still a draw. So there have been plenty of cases where a guy or a female might lose 2 fights in a row, and then all of a sudden the UFC's like, you got to go. And then there are cases where very popular fighters might lose 3 fights in a row, and they're like, yeah, you're still fine, come back in. Like look at Clay Guida, for instance. When Clay Guida went on a losing streak, no one even questioned if he was going to like be kicked out of the UFC. It wasn't even a question. Like they were going to keep him because he's a popular guy. Like they didn't give a shit. It's a strange thing. I think Chuck Liddell, if I remember correctly, please don't quote me on this, but this is just me going based off of memory. I think he lost maybe 3 fights in a row before they finally kicked him, even though he showed clear signs of CTE well before then. It's a strange thing. And like, yes, if you've ever been around Chuck Liddell, he's a fucking great dude. He's a great dude. His coach, John Hackeman's a friend of mine, a mentor, and I respect him. But even then, like when Chuck Liddell was trying to go get other fights after the UFC gave him the boot, like John was against it. He was telling him, hey, you shouldn't take these fights, like, because he clearly has a traumatic brain injury. And if you've been around him for more than 5 minutes, you would know. So for the UFC to have kept him on as long as they did when it was so blatantly obvious, like that's a clear sign of asses and seats. Like they didn't give as much a fuck about his health because they knew that he was still going to draw in people, And I'm not saying the UFC does this all the time, but I'm saying there are definitely cases that it happens.
He kind of nudged me in the direction of thinking about someone like John Jones, who always seems to in terms of mental health and CTE, I've not, as for speaking personally from my own, from what I've seen, I've never seen or even heard any signs of CTE or any sort of brain injury or any brain injury related issues where he's concerned. Um, but I think people would question whether he should. I mean, he should still be kept on in the sport. I mean, there was another particular athlete who I think in 2021 or 22 was kicked out. He had a French name. His name just escapes me now. Something Phoenix or so. He's tall, he looks biracial or so.
Okay.
Uh, but he was given the boot from the UFC just after 2 or 3 fights, and I think he actually told the organization, "I do have some mental health problems, so please can you help me?" And people have been saying that probably John Jones had the same issue, and John Jones is, well, let me say Dana White always looks the other way where John Jones is concerned. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that is something that's really similar to other sports. Unlike the ranking system, right? Like the Dallas Cowboys in the 90s was like probably the worst role models ever. Like the Dallas Cowboys in the 90s in their heyday, they were constantly getting busted for drug use, for spousal abuse, for prostitutes. Like they were getting busted for everything under the sun, and no one cared because they were still winning games. Like that's nothing new to sports in general. Like certain people, like I'll give you one of the greatest examples, right? You can love somebody for one thing and hate them for something else. That's what allows you to have good, wholesome relationships with anyone. So you can have a friend who makes a mistake and you can still be their friend and still not respect them for the decision that they made, but still be their friend. Like Dana White in one press conference said that there's no coming back from that. And what he meant by there's no coming back from that was if you hit your spouse. That was like what that conference was about. And then you fast forward years later and he's caught in a nightclub slapping the living dog shit out of his wife multiple times. Well, there was apparently coming back from that because, he said, yes, I did this. No one should apologize for my actions. My actions were wrong. And then people were like, are you going to resign? He's like, fuck no. And he moved on with life. Right. And so at the end of the day, the UFC has to make a decision. If you're going to make bold statements like there's no coming back from that, you better fucking follow through. Because if you don't, you look like a hypocrite, And then so here you have some other fighters who have been booted out of the UFC for domestic violence, yet the big dog does it and it's okay. And I'm not saying that he says it's okay, but when you do something and there's no consequences to your actions, you're saying it's okay. Like that's what that is.
It's not just Dana White. I think in Dana White's own case, that happened in New Year's Eve in 2022. Um, in his own case, we don't exactly know the full in and outs of what actually happened that night, or do we?
What would there be to know? Like,
It
what
shouldn't
do you
happen
need to
anyway.
know? Like, all right, man, I saw this guy stab this woman in the neck 17 times. We don't know all the facts. We
Sorry,
don't, we don't, we don't know exactly what went down. She could have said something snarky, like even if like again, he didn't make those caveats in his speech. He wasn't like, well, these other fighters that we kicked out, we don't know the whole story. No, that's not what he said. He said there's no coming back from that. So like it's either one or the other. Now, again, this is one of those things where I would most 9 times out of 10 say it's none of my fucking business, right? 9 times out of 10. Why? This is their shit. This is their personal shit that happened to get caught on camera. And the rough part about being someone who is of celebrity status and in the limelight is it's very hard to have anything personal. That in itself will weigh on you. You have eyeballs on you all the time, and every little move and every little piece of chess piece you move is going to be scrutinized and observed and stuff like that, right? And I started that conversation with something specific, and I meant to say that because I wanted to come back to it, which was you can like someone for one thing and hate them for something else, right?
Yeah.
You can love the fact that Dana White was able to get the sport to where it is today. There's no denying that he was the forerunner to be able to make MMA what it is today. That is a fact, right? Now, I'm not saying he did it alone, but I'm saying he did spearhead this, and he was the guy in charge, and he did take all the heat. Do I like that? Yes. Do I think that he necessarily treats all the fighters the way that he should? Well, I don't know, because I'm not back there handling paperwork. I don't know the behind the scenes of how their money works. So when you see fighters complaining about pay, I don't know how all that works. You know, could they afford it? Could they not afford it? You'd assume so, but we don't know. We're guessing, right? But then when you look at something like that, you got to hold a certain standard. If not, you're going to wind up going down a slippery slope of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
If
Yes.
Dana White doesn't step down, you understand that. You're like, okay, well, he doesn't step down because he's the boss, and who else would fill those shoes, and what would happen to the organization? What would happen to all these other fighters? Is there a next person being groomed to take his spot? Is there someone who would be able to take his spot right now? Right. So if we say, yeah, Dana should have stepped down, and then he does, and then the entire organization crumbles, and all of those fighters, all of those employees are now out of jobs, was that the right thing to do? It's hard to navigate. It's a difficult thing, but don't fucking say stupid shit that you're going to get called out on either. Don't say shit like there's no coming back from it, and then you do it, and then all of a sudden you can. Like, you shouldn't have said that shit to begin with, right? Either you have the standard or you don't, and they don't. So it is what it is.
You see, that's and I'm going to sound so petty for saying this, but it's going to be like, you know, you've done that now, and then you're gonna in future you're gonna kind of like say you're gonna like advise people, especially the young folks who there are many young people who look up to these athletes and all these successful combat sports affiliated individuals. I mean, I doubt that someone like Dana White or John Jones or even Conor McGregor can even tell people, advise people on the do's and don'ts. You know, certain things they should avoid, and just how they should carry themselves, whereby they themselves are fucking up all the time. Look, Conor McGregor is in the news at least every 2 to 3 times a month, or every 2 to 3 weeks or so, of actually what feels like every day now, for something an assault, an incident, altercation. But he seems to be in the news for something. If it's not sports, it's gonna be for something else negative or so, you know.
Well, I think that when it comes to, I'll go back to the thing that I said. I'll just repeat it because I think it bears fruit. You can like somebody for something and hate them for something else. I could like a fighter for being a good fighter and know they're a big piece of shit. I could respect their technique. I could respect their attributes. I could respect their grit. I could respect all of those things and still not want to fucking hang out with them. You know, like, do I want to have to worry about someone doing some crazy shit? No. So, like, why would I want to fucking hang around people if I knew that they were trouble? That doesn't mean that, like, think about how many people that we respect that do the dirtiest, most egregious shit, but we don't find out until like a decade later. Like, we don't find out while we're looking up to them. We find out after they fall off, and all of a sudden all the dirty laundry comes out, right? How many rappers have we stopped listening to because they shot someone? How many TV shows did we stop watching because the actor did something we didn't like? How many movies where we were like, I'm never watching this person's movie again? Like, 9 times out of 10, you don't. They do the crack. Okay, you go, well, sucks for him, but I like that movie. So you keep watching their movie, like, did you ever stop listening to Michael Jackson? Did you boycott his stuff? Did you never listen to another Michael Jackson song again? How about R. Kelly? You ever stop listening to R. Kelly?
No, but I hear exactly what you're saying word for word. But the thing is, I mean, the way that you will think of that person now will completely change. I mean, whenever you hear their song come on or see their film, you say, "Oh, that's great film, nice tunes," but you might, I don't know, you might convulse slightly, knowing also they've got this good talent, but also knowing something else about them, something else so heinous that you just never thought.
Of course, but like, I think that it's very difficult for us, especially in a modern age where we understand more of the human psyche, that things are not black and white with people. Like, people even very close to you that you respect are going to probably have a misstep. And when they have that misstep, do we judge them off the 99% of the times they did the right, or the 1% they did the wrong? Like, it depends on the wrong. It depends on what they did. It depends on how they affect me personally. Is, like, let's say, for instance, a musician, does that person's music affect me in a more positive way than this incident that I only think about when I think about the incident. It's very difficult for us to try to pigeonhole people in this. They're either a good person or a bad person. That's not real. That's a fantasy we would love to make up in our head because we so want there to be just a good and bad. What we don't want to see is the percentage of good and bad. What we don't want to look at is the fact that there are people out on at the planet that are like 60% bad people, but 40% not. And there are people who are 60% good people, but 40% they fuck up and make mistakes. There is no 100% good person. So I think that we need to stop feeding this fantasy to people. I think now, because of social media and the internet and the fact that almost everything is on camera now, that we're just now seeing that. Like, no one gets out of this clean anymore. We're all flawed human beings. And so if we're flawed, let's look at this from a realistic standpoint. A child, right? We're trying to make sure that the child has a good role model. So that child winds up finding a musician that they like. They wind up doing the same old thing they always have. An athlete that they like, an actor that they like, someone usually in the arts is what usually becomes a mentor, even if it's like a coach, right? Then you find out that that person isn't necessarily a great person. What if, let's say hypothetically, there was someone out there who did something like cured cancer, right? Just completely found the cure for cancer. And then all of a sudden we find out, now that this person's super famous, all the little skeletons in their closet. Did they still cure cancer? Like, what would it be? What would it take for us to no longer give a shit that they did this amazing thing? How much would it take for us to be able to go, you know what? Thanks for the curing cancer, I guess. You know, you saved like millions of lives, but you're a piece of shit. So, you know, you don't get credit for that anymore. Like, what would it take? And the word is called equity. So this is something like in relationships, when you and another person are friends, buddies, spouses, whatever the case may be, when you do something good for that person, it's called putting equity into the relationship, right? I have these notes. I can say I did this and this on this date, and you don't necessarily keep a tally, but they add up, whether we know it or not. You bought your spouse flowers. You took her out on a date. You said nice things, right? That's equity. You're building equity. So that way, when you do make a mistake, was the things good? Did that outweigh the bad? Well, when the bad starts outweighing the good, what winds up happening is now you're in this emotional debt. Now, no matter what you do, you're playing catch up, and it will always seem like the only reason you're doing good is to make up for the bad. So it's so important at the beginning of any relationship, even for athletes, that you stack on as much good as humanly possible. So eventually, if you do fall, your fan base is still there for you because they understand, hey, man, we get it. You're going to make a mistake, but you did all of these great things for us. We get it. Look at Babe Ruth. Like, we found out after Babe Ruth was like dead that he was like this huge womanizer, alcoholic piece of garbage, right? But his equity up to that point, people didn't know because, again, we didn't have social media back then, you know?
I've got some other questions to ask you. In fact, you give me even more questions to ask you, but can I reconnect with you in about the next 10 or 15 minutes? Just the time limiter for Zoom has come on. Would that be okay?
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, send me another link and I'll hop right back on. We'll get back to it.
I will do, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, not a problem.
Where we left off in the first half, it was about the the morals or so of a fighter, and then how popular they are in the sports, or well, not just in the sport of mixed martial arts or combat sports, but also about basically in life in general. If you're preaching all these things, you better be sure to back it up with how you carry yourself and how you go about your day-to-day life and so on.
Well, I mean, I think that at the end of the day, a lot of people can be hypocritical, but the thing is that if you're the head of an organization,
yes,
and you say this is our policy and procedure, and you don't follow through. I mean, people say shit and change their mind all the time. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind about things. The problem is that it's not necessarily a good path to go down if you say, as an organization, hey, we do not tolerate A, B, and C unless the bosses do it, and then it's okay. You know, there's a difference. And the other thing we kind of discussed last time too is you can like somebody from one thing and not like them for something else.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's completely fine for you to say, I respect someone, or hell, I even like them as a person. I just don't like this thing that they did. That's something that is kind of important in the world, because imagine if you found out the truth about absolutely every hero you've ever had, right?
Yeah.
Like there was this rumor going around, which it could be just because of a meme. I don't know. I don't know if this is true. This is a rumor. But let's say hypothetically this rumor was true. There was this meme that I saw. Now, again, I do not know if this is true. This is just an example. But it was talking about how Martin Luther King Jr. would go around and sleep with different women on tours while he was giving speeches. Now, let's say hypothetically that's true, right? Would he
Yes.
still not be a great man for all the things that he did? This is the trick with these conversations, right? You can like somebody for one thing and not like them for something else. Now, I don't know if that rumor is true. Again, it's the internet. People say stupid shit all the time that's not true, right? But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, if that was true, what would your viewpoint be of that human being? How
Yeah.
drastically different would it matter? I mean, something to think about.
No, in the case of Martin Luther King, I have to say that I've heard something similar to what you just said, that he on when he was on his civil rights tours back in the 50s and 60s, that they were sleeping with different women and so on. Uh, I think there's a YouTuber from the US, a black guy called ABL. I'm not sure if you've come across his channel or so. That's the acronym he uses for the channel. But I did hear that oh God, this is venturing into something else, like that. Yeah, that Martin Luther King was involved in orgies and stuff like that. Um, you
Again,
know,
I don't know if it's true,
yes,
like,
yes, yeah,
but at the end of the day, the main point is like, let's say your favorite person on the planet was Bozo the Clown, right? You're
yeah.
like, Bozo the Clown is my guy. That's who I look up to. And then you find out Bozo the Clown was smacking around his wife, right?
Mm,
Like, all right, well, you can still like Bozo for doing the things that you liked Bozo doing. You could still hate him for the other thing. Now, the hard part is we discussed last time is the equity. How
yeah.
much good did they put in the world, and how much bad did they put in the world? If there's more good than bad, it makes things a little different. And what type of bad? I mean, it just all boils down to people's individual morals, which I don't think anyone has the right to dictate to another person what someone else's moral fiber should be. I think that there are certain things that are unforgivable, in my opinion. But I mean, at the end of the day, there are laws in place for a reason. If you cross a certain line, eventually you're going to have to deal with those laws. So
I would like to come back to this in a little while, but there's there's an individual I want to ask you about. Um, that you said you're not maybe not friends with, but they're fully on social media. But I was surprised when you actually mentioned his name the last time that we spoke in the first half of this episode, Brendan Schaub.
what
Uh,
about him?
okay, at the moment he seems to be someone who's, as in, it seems to be a successful comedian, if you can call it that. Although many people believe that his success is due to him having ties and connections to one particular established comedian already. Um, but he seems to kind of, people don't really find him as entertaining as he probably thinks he is, and they find him to be far more the opposite, far more annoying. It's just that someone like yourself, I wouldn't have thought that you would have anything to do with that. I mean, some people even think that maybe he wasn't even that much of a good mixed martial artist.
Mm. I'm curious about a couple things on in that statement, because there's a lot to unpack in what you said and how you said it. But the first thing is, why would you be surprised that I would like follow that person or have been on their show or communicated with them? Why is that surprising?
Uh, there's just that you seem to be like a very intelligent, articulate person. You actually call out bullshit when you see it. As in, you really don't like nonsense. You seem like a no-nonsense sort of person. But he himself, on the other hand, he seems to be someone who kind of, going back to the sort of morality conversation we had earlier. Um, he will do one thing and then he'll call somebody else out for doing the same thing. kind of thing. And then it's almost like he's a very much a hypocrite himself, but he will never accept it. This is probably up because I'm going by all the trolling I'm seeing on YouTube and all the Reddit, the subreddits and stuff like that. And maybe I've never met Brendan Schaub in person, in the flesh, so I really can't say. So unfortunately, how I put that statement probably was very biased because I'm going solely based on what I've been hearing and seeing on the internet. I never met the person actually in person.
Well, I mean, that's the fun part about the internet, right? We can say absolutely whatever we want to say, and
Yeah.
some people will follow it and certain people won't. I think at the end of the day, you know his name.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
you are aware this person exists. Do you think it was luck that got that person to their position? Like, just be honest. Like, do you really think this person just stumbled their way into the spotlight? Or do you think that there had to be something? Like, let's just start from the beginning. So this person made it to the UFC, right? How many people don't make it to the UFC?
A lot. A lot.
But he did. So
Yeah.
did he do that because he knew another comedian? No, he did that on the back of his own hard work. Then when he got there, he was able to actually have wins in the UFC, correct? He didn't just have a losing streak, right? So that means that he was able to beat other people who also had to claw their way into the UFC with their skill. So he was in a competition against other trained athletes. Is he the best MMA fighter of all time? Absolutely not. But who gives a shit? The majority of the UFC roster is not the best fighters in the world. Like the majority of the UFC roster at the end of the day is not the world champions. They're not going to be the the Usmans. They're not going to be the Khabibs. They're not going to be the Anderson Silvas. There was a slew of people on that roster that are going to have like 4 fights and you're never going to hear from again. There are a slew of people who have negative records in the UFC. There are a slew of people who have so-so records, but because of that so-so record, they'll never be put in the spotlight the same way as other people. So at the end of the day, a lot of those people I've never even fucking heard of. Like, but I've heard of this person. So I don't think it's a mistake that that person got into the UFC. The other part is this person was able to start several podcasts. Whether you like them or not, people are still talking about them. The algorithm doesn't give a shit what you say as long as you say it. So if I, let's say hypothetically, go online and I look at my analytics, the analytics don't tell me words. The
Yeah.
analytics tell me numbers. And what it says is you have this many comments. It doesn't care if it's good or bad comments. Doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, I would wonder why people would be so, I don't know, bored to like go after something they just simply aren't big fans of. At the end of the day, if you don't like them, fuck it. You don't like them, that's cool, right? Personally, I just know my experiences with the man. He's never done anything wrong to me. I've never really seen him do anything specifically malicious. I think he's just like anybody else. He probably has word vomit that happens from time to time. You're being filmed all the fucking time on across multiple podcasts with multiple people. Eventually, you're going to say some shit that's going to contradict some other shit that you said because we are not computers. We do not keep tallies of I said this on this day and this time. You know who does keep track of that shit? People with no fucking lives. Like, this person said this over here. Hold on. But this podcast over here, like, who gives a fuck? If you don't like them, you don't like them. If you like them, you like them. Personally, he gave me an opportunity to be on his platform, which is a much bigger platform than mine, to be able to spread a message that is about taking down fakes, frauds, phonies, con men, and pedophiles. He gave me a platform to be able to discuss bullshit in the industry that could get people harmed or killed or raped. So at the end of the day, yeah, absolutely, I'm grateful that he gave me that platform. And you know what? I'd be on his show again tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. You've kind of given me some just in the 5 minutes or so what you just said there. You have given me something else to think about. Um, You're right. The algorithms and the traffic going towards his platform, the numbers they're just telling you numbers, numerical data. It doesn't tell you the actual text of what people are actually saying in the comments and whatever. But but I think, and again, I say this with the notion of giving him the benefit of the doubt. I've never met him before, but again, from what I can see, from what I've been hearing, all of the what people are saying seems to be much more on the negative side. There's very little there's very little positive. I mean, many people believe the reason why he's managed to gain the sort of status within the comedy industry and probably podcasting is because of his relationship with Joe Rogan. In fact, it was Joe Rogan who back in 2014 actually sat him down in the podcast live and said, I think it's better that you kind of stop fighting, the performance isn't that your performance isn't what it used to be. And I think you're a very funny person, you're very entertaining in that regard, and for that reason maybe we should venture into comedy. And the podcasts, have done well, but again, not forgetting what you just told me, Rob, if you look at what people are saying, people are saying he only managed to get the sort of status and standing in comedy because of who he knows, Joe Rogan. And even then, if you look at the what do they call it, the is it Rotten Tomatoes numbers, that the score ratings of his content, they seem to be quite poor. One
Well,
out of 10 on
let's play that game.
IMDb.
Let's go down that path, because I think it's important to go down that path, right? Because you said a couple things here, like people online, people on Reddit. I can't speak to people online or people on Reddit. I would love to have a conversation with anyone. I go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern time on my Instagram, and I let anyone join the live that wants to join the live. So if anybody would like to continue this conversation there, you're more than welcome to. But since I can't talk to them right now, I can talk to you about it. So let's play that game. So let's go down that path. If Brendan Schaub called you up tomorrow and said, hey, I'd love to have you on my show, are you going to make your decision based off of what other people have said online? Or are you going to actually hop on there because it would actually boost you? And then you, as a grown man, would be able to have this conversation directly with him.
Okay, to start with, I would say yes. I mean, I would appreciate the fact that someone with a much bigger platform than myself and their content kind of relates to what I do, because they were a mixed martial arts fighter. So they still have ties to the sport. I probably would say yes, but then I would and also keep in mind what other people have said, but still giving the person the benefits of the doubt, so I can kind of with what I've seen before in the past, there's certain things, certain behaviors from him that I probably would anticipate would happen if I was to have this conversation with him. There, just an honest leveling with him. I'd probably expect him to probably deflect a lot of things that I say to him and put forward to him. And I probably, just if I ask him, why do you do such and such, or behave the way you do? I mean, right now, I think there's the issue with Mark Harley, and then before that, there was the issue with the Kyler girl, is it Bobby Lee? They're having that issue, so that I think Bren was involved, and eventually for some reason Bobby Lee and his girlfriend, they split up or so.
I mean, at the end of the day, do we base our decisions off of other people's opinions? I mean, I think that if the dude did something that was horrendous, that we were like, oh my God, this guy like raped a kid, we would be like, yeah, of course I'm not going to be on his show. Yeah. Or, but again, we can keep playing that game. Dana White slapped the shit out of his wife several times. He went on a press conference and legitimately said, please stop defending me. What I did was wrong. Right. So I have no problem saying that, because that's the truth. He did slap the shit out of his wife multiple times. It was caught on camera, and he did go on a press conference and tell people to stop defending him. So if Dana White came to you tomorrow and said, hey, man, I got a multi-million-dollar deal for you to have your show on Fight Pass, do you turn that down because he slapped his wife? Or do you take the deal so you can reach other people and spread a good message?
No, you would take the deal.
Okay, so exactly that's all I needed. So of course you take the deal, right? So at the end of the day, it's very easy for people who have nothing to gain or lose to go on a Reddit forum and speak their opinion. Of course, people should have the right to speak their opinion. I think that that's great. And yes, we as human beings do take those opinions and we assimilate them. But I think certain opinions, certain things should be taken with a grain of salt, especially when it's subjective. For instance, if people don't think it's funny, Okay. I mean, I don't think he's the funniest fucking dude in the world. Hell, I didn't really even like his stand-up. But at the end of the day, I can't deny the fact that he was able to use his platform to be able to get to the position to be able to have that stand-up. So he gets critiqued on something he was able to do by people who were not able to do the same thing. Yes. I respect the person who was able to do it way more than the person who was able to critique it. And so when it comes down to like people like liking or hating somebody, okay, that's cool. People are allowed their own opinions, and some of those opinions might actually intersect with my own opinions. But at the end of the day, I look at the proof in the pudding, you know, and again, we can like somebody for some things and hate them for other things, right? I can respect the man's hustle and grind and work. How do we know that he hustles and grinds and works? He was a UFC fighter. That's not the easiest thing to be able to become. He didn't have just hit all ass whoopings. He was able to win some of those fights, right? Then on top of that, he was able to get boosted up. He's been on Rogan's show multiple times. He was able to take that, use that stepping stone to be able to create a career for himself where he goes and just has conversations online with people basically through podcast form. So when it comes down to it, yeah, we can shit on anybody all we want. But at the end of the day, if any of those fucking people, right, were given an opportunity to boost their own careers through his medium, they would shut the fuck up that day. And they would say yes. Why? Because at the end of the day, it would help them boost their own career, right? Now, the question is, would they accept it? If they say no, I'm sure they'll be, oh, of course I wouldn't fucking do it. Fuck him. Okay, that's cool. So you would purposely sabotage yourself because of your opinion of someone. Instead of having balls like a grown-ass man going on his show and speaking directly to his face, I have no respect for anyone who wouldn't do that. Like, you have an opinion of someone, go talk to them about it. Like, literally a conversation, right? But don't be a psycho. Like, people, I'm sure there are people out there who go, well, I sent him a message on a DM and he blocked me. Of course he probably blocked you because he doesn't fucking know you and you probably came all incorrect. If I'm at a house party and some random person I don't know comes up and tells me all about how they hate me, I'm kicking them out my fucking house. Like, I don't know you. Of course you get blocked, right? That's not how the world works. But if you actually engage with another human being with a honest back and forth, you wind up getting some truth and you might actually find out something about other people that you might not have known before. But the only way to do that is to take all your own personal bullshit, put it to the side and say, you know what? I feel this way about you, but I would like to hear your opinion. I would love to know about A, B, and C. But again, you only have two different kinds of people. You have the people who would literally say no, so they would sabotage themselves, or you would have the people who would say yes and actually speak with the man. Like, even if they went just despite the guy, they're like, I can't wait to get on this motherfucking show. Like, which has happened, by the way, to other people. I don't know if it's necessarily happened to him, but there have been a lot of podcasts over the years where someone went on a podcast specifically because they knew they didn't like this person. And then when they got on the podcast, they had like very confrontational conversation with that person and kind of.
You say, just while we just had that break there, that's Brendan Schaub. Whilst I just sorted myself out on my end, you saw on your IG live feed that Brendan Schaub had just purchased a house for his mother.
Yeah, like literally when we took that break, I went on my Instagram, just started flipping through, and it was a post that he just made about him buying a house for his mom. Like he said, he saved up money from all his tours and stuff like that. And I think he said he'd been saving that money for about 3 years, and he was able to buy his mom a house right up.
You see, I get that. That's one. But you see, on the flip side, okay, I probably would love the opportunity to go on his podcast and have a conversation about whatever it is. But you see, that's just part of the stuff that people tend to dislike. Those things, I mean, do people need to know that? I mean, there are other things he's kind of just blurted out and put out there that it's like, well, was it that necessary? Did the world need to know about whatever it is you're doing?
Well, I mean, is it necessary for us to hear other people's opinions about someone else that they don't know and never met? Like, nothing is, almost nothing is necessary.
Yeah.
This goes down to an argument that's been going online forever, right? Someone does something really nice for someone, like typically you'll see it with like influencers who go out and like give money to someone who's homeless or buy them something nice. And they'll film it and then they'll get like these genuine reactions of the homeless person really caring. I personally that's just me, have never seen a homeless person get upset that they were receiving a gift. I've never seen it. Not one time on any of these videos have I ever seen a homeless person saying, get the fuck out of here. I don't want your pity money. Like, oh, I'm not going to take that food because you're filming me. Like, I've never seen it happen. Because if you're actually homeless, right, and you're in a position where you need help and someone helps you, it doesn't matter what the terms are. You're helping me. I'm starving, you know? So when I'm seeing like people online who shit on that, like, why? Like, because it shows that someone wasn't being greedy, yet we don't give two fucks that Floyd Mayweather buys a new fucking Bugatti or, you know, like, shouldn't we give a fuck that people are posting about themselves all the goddamn time? How many people are upset about that, but all have nothing but selfies on their wall? How self-absorbed could they possibly be that they're upset that someone did something nice for someone else when all they give a fuck is about their own vanity? Just pictures of themselves all the time. Like, it just shows you only give a fuck about you. There's more to life than you. So when someone does something online and is kind to another human being and they post about it, we should take that as, oh my God, maybe I should do the same thing. Even if you don't post about it, go do something nice for someone else. There's nothing wrong with posting about being kind to another person because that might be your payment. Like, if I gave you $100,000 and wanted to take a selfie and post about doing it, do you really give a shit that I took a selfie? No, you're going to go, thanks for the $100,000. This is amazing. It's going to change my life. But you know what? You took a selfie, so never mind. Like, that's fucking ridiculous. You know, the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Like, it just blows my mind because you always see people talk about this online. Like, whoa, you don't need to post it. Like, why the fuck not? Why? Because it makes them feel good to have done a good deed and they are proud of something that they did.
Well, okay. Although you did say that it doesn't matter what the terms are, so you still stand by that. Like, even though they might be helping this person out, they might be helping them out just to make themselves look good. The fact that the other person is being assisted and getting the help that they need to
again, why is an outside party who is not involved with that give a fuck? Like, you can either be out there talking about doing good for other people, or you can talk shit about people doing good for other people. Like, I do not see a problem with someone doing something good for someone else. And who gives a shit what their goal was? Like, oh, well, you only did that because, yeah, but they still did it. What the fuck did you do? Like, what? You just threw shade at somebody because they were happy that they did a good deed?
I
Like,
I think maybe people will be questioning whether the help or the kindness is genuine, you know.
again, the result speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Do you think the person who got the help gives a fuck? I promise you they don't care, because if they did, they would not accept. They don't give a shit. The only people that give a shit are people who are too busy typing online talking shit about people doing good for other people.
Yes. Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I would love to see the rebuttals of people who saw someone do something kind and then they just posted a selfie and said, you know what, today I did this. I'm not going to show this other person, but this is something that I did, in hopes that it would encourage other people to do the same. Then even if you did that, there'd be somebody saying, oh, the only reason you posted this is to make yourself feel better. Yeah, but what the fuck did you do? Like, you just criticized someone who did a good deed. Why do I give a shit? Assuming I know their intentions. I don't know their intentions. I know the result. The result is they did something good for another person. Like, I'm a little dumbfounded by the internet speak. That's what that is. That is an echo chamber of people online who just talk shit and do absolutely nothing to do the betterment of the world. Look at Tom DeBlas. Are you familiar with Tom DeBlas?
Sounds familiar. I think it rings a bell.
He was in the UFC. He's a very famous jiu-jitsu instructor, and he's got organizations all over the world. Tom DeBlas has been posting up pictures and videos of children who were abused in school, bullied. Not a big fan of the word, but physically assaulted in school. And then after they were assaulted, he reaches out to the parents, finds out where the kids are, and puts them in a martial arts program. Changes those kids' lives, completely changes them around. So are we going to say that Tom did this just to make himself feel better because he posted about it? We could look at it that way, but that makes us bitter, cynical pieces of shit. That's the truth. If that's how we view other people's kindness, there's something wrong with us. If we can look at kindness as a bad thing in any way, shape, or form, And then he's able to do so. And then that inspired so many other people to go out into the world and open up their martial arts schools and bring those kids in for free to be able to help them become better people and get away from the abuse that has led to multiple suicides, which I did a story about. So at the end of the day, if we are ever looking at someone else's kindness and we're going, that person's a piece of shit because they did something kind, but they took a picture of it, we're pieces of shit. Like, I don't care who it is. Anybody is more than welcome to come talk to me about this. I think that if you believe someone doing something kind for another person is a bad thing because they took a picture or talked about it, then fuck you. You're a piece of shit human being. Because at the end of the day, while you're sitting there complaining about that person doing something kind, you yourself are not doing something kind. You're talking shit. Okay, how does that help absolutely anyone? Does it make it so that way that person goes, you know what? Most likely it probably puts that person in a position, or if they get bombarded with all these messages, puts them in a position where they're going, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't do kind things anymore because I'm looked down upon by society. Is that really the goal? Because at the end of the day, that's all that's going to equal is making someone feel bad for doing something kind.
I hear that, I do, but now you're some sort of reminding me of something else now. Now, this is a conversation we could have for forever. But let's say people who are wealthy, all these wealthy billionaires, how have they made their money? But they do have a quite a heinous past. And let's use an example: trafficking, sex trafficking, pedophilia, that sort of thing. But they use whatever wealth they have and influence they have to do good, to help charities, set up organizations, do philanthropic, hopefully got the word right, work, those sorts of things. But you find that because the individual probably is known for something that they did before in the past, where the money is going to go to, the charity, the organization, for example, they'll turn the money down, say, no, we wouldn't like to have any connections with you at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a far cry from what we were just talking about, though. That's like a night and day leap. To say that someone took a photo and did something kind for someone,
Oh, okay. No, I see what
and then
you
all of
mean.
a sudden people jump on them literally about that act, not their past, not other things they've done. Literally, that act of kindness gets crapped on. That's
Yeah.
not even close to the discussion we were just having. So, yes, there's a big difference between a rapist
Yeah,
trying to do good and someone who literally just did good. Like, if someone went online and was like, yeah, but you did these things prior, okay, well, that's talking about something completely different than the context of what was going on. That'd be like if I gave you $20 and all of
yeah,
a sudden I saw you jaywalking yesterday. Like, what the fuck? Where did that come from? Mike Tyson did an interview one time, right?
yeah.
This is probably one of the most famous interviews Mike Tyson's ever done. Right around the time Mike Tyson was doing his one-man show, he goes on a morning television show and he's there to promote his one-man show to discuss what's inside the show. And then the reporter looks at him and starts talking about his rape allegations from decades before that. Mike Tyson got a little upset, as I'm sure anybody would be. Now, at the end of the day, whether Mike Tyson did that or not, it still kind of blindsided him because it had nothing to do with the context of what was going on in the moment. It was like that reporter waited for that opportunity. Hey, at the end of the day, I think that is something important that should be discussed. And Tyson himself, in his one man show, discusses in detail all the shit he's done wrong in his life, including discussing about those allegations. So at the end of the day, when someone goes and does something good in the context of the conversation we were having, should we shit on them for the good thing that they did?
No, no, we shouldn't, because at
You can
least,
shit on somebody for bad
yeah.
things they do. Don't get me wrong. I do that for a living, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm not going to sit there and somebody does something kind for someone else and go, that act itself is bullshit.
Mm,
I can say, okay, that was very nice of you, but you also did all of these things that are egregious. But that was a nice act because that act in itself is a nice act. So again, I really do not understand why we make certain things viral
yeah,
and we celebrate the most heinous bullshit, but we shit
yeah,
on the
yeah.
good thing. There are viral videos out there of children being assaulted in schools. People are talking and happy that these things are happening. Yeah, that kid was a nerd. I'm so glad that he got beat up. He was
Mm.
talking all that shit. Just go on any forum where you see videos of people assaulting someone else and just look at how many views. and likes and shares that gets. And then look at something where somebody does something kind and just go through the comment sections and see how many people are shitting on the kind act. What are we doing as a society if we are so much into celebrating someone's violence and egregious behavior, yet we shit on the good behavior because we assume why they did it? Why the fuck do we care? The act is important, and it should be treated as such.
No, you're right. I mean, I would be more concerned that the person who's in need of help, they've got the help, and for now at least they can sort themselves out and do whatever. Say like the homeless person, for example, at least for the next night or 2 nights or so, they got somewhere they can stay. They won't be out in the cold on the street. So, no, you're right. The act is what should concern you first and foremost.
Yeah, and then why won't we make that viral? Why isn't kindness viral? Because there's too many people who think that when you do something kind online, the echo chamber of other people dropping that nugget in your head over and over and over again, oh, the only reason they did that was because of this and that. Why? Because you're bitter? Like, because someone on there is bitter that they themselves literally are not doing the same thing? Like, how many of those people just like drive past a homeless person? Oh, fuck that fucking dirty homeless person. How many of those people are like sitting there posting, again, nothing but selfies, only care about themselves? Like, if that is what you're doing with your time, is to take time out of your day to look at an act of kindness, go onto a comment section and say something negative about a genuine act of kindness, or hell, even if it's not genuine, even if it's just an act of kindness, because I don't know what's inside that person's head. But maybe that person did this and it inspires other people to do the same thing. That would be a good thing, not a bad thing. And then you'd have that same dude on every one of those posts they see. Oh, fucking, you only did this because you want to feel good about yourself. Oh, this guy did it too. You only did this. Eventually, if you have enough people doing the opposite of that, you'll spread kindness and make kindness viral. You'll get less of these assholes who are in their own little echo chambers of like, the only reason you did that was because, like, who gives a fuck why they did it? No one should don't give a shit. Did you do it because you just wanted to feel good about yourself? Or is it bad to feel good about yourself? Because that's what they're saying. They're saying it's a bad thing to feel good about yourself for doing something kind for someone else. That's what that means.
Yeah.
Or you go, hey, they did a nice thing. Cool. Still don't like you. Still think you're an asshole. Still don't enjoy all these other things that you've done. But that I can give respect to. I can say thank you for doing something kind for another person. Because it's a genuinely good thing, you know? Like, I don't know, just bothers me to my core when I see that shit online, because I think what winds up happening is children, as they grow up, some of their first forms of communication nowadays are with people online, something that they have access to at a very young age that I did not have access to at that young of an age. Then when they go and they start seeing how people interact with each other online, it's nothing but venom and vile and hatred. Like, what do you think that that's going to do psychologically to a child who's growing up and learning how to communicate with other people? They're learning that's how you should communicate, how you should act, how the world is. And then we wonder why when a kid goes to school, he's assaulted or bullied or winds up disrespecting and hitting a teacher, which didn't happen too long ago because a kid got his Nintendo Switch taken away. He knocked a woman out and beat the shit out of her because his Nintendo Switch got taken away. Like, do you think that kid's right in the head? Like, do you think everything was going good up there? Like, the kid was well enough to do to have a Nintendo Switch. But again, what are we doing as a community to boost other people in good behavior? If we shit on good behavior, we're not helping society. We're only harming it, in my opinion.
I think maybe if we didn't have social media, at least to the kind of abundance we have today, probably that it wouldn't be that much of an issue. You know, people wouldn't shit on people's, you know, acts of kindness and love as much as they do today.
I think a lot of people use internet as their therapy. They use it as an opportunity to get a lot of things off their chest because they can hide behind a wall of anonymity. They don't have to worry about consequences to things that they want to say. Probably a lot of people feel stifled. So they feel like in the real world, they cannot say and act and be and do what they want. So they make an avatar, and that's who they are online. And that presence is who they really are, because that's unfiltered.
Yes,
no consequences. You can say whatever you want. So it goes to show that there are a lot of really damaged people in the world, and that's very sad. But a friend of mine, Robin Black, I don't know if you're familiar with his work or not, but we've gotten really close over the years, and I love the way he looks at the world. If you ever watch him do commentary for Fight Work or look at him doing breakdowns about technique, he's very analytical in the way he looks at the world. And some of the advice that he gives me is pure gold. I remember me and him talking, and he was stuck in an airport one time. He just randomly called me up. I'm like, "Hey man, how you doing, brother? How's everything going?" And he was like, "Well, my flight got delayed twice." He goes, "I'll be stuck here for like another, like I think 24 hours or something like that." And I was like, "Dude, that sucks." He goes, "It is what it is." I was like, "I would be pissed." He's like, "Yeah, but think about it this way. If my flights kept getting delayed, that's one problem. The only problem that he has is he can't get to where he's supposed to be going. That's one problem." He said, "But if all of a sudden now I start looking at that in a negative way and I start getting upset about this, now I have two problems. And the only reason I have the second problem is specifically because of the way I behaved, not because of what the act was." And so it made me really start to process how to interact with other people. So like whenever somebody, if you look at Robin Black's stuff, whenever somebody has like something negative to say about him, he always comes from a place of care, like genuine concern. It's not like made up concern. It's not sarcasm. If someone comes at him so negative, he always has a kind word to say back to them because he's genuinely worried about that person, because for some reason that person felt the need to step out of their day specifically to throw venom at another human being. And that's not healthy. So it's very interesting the way that he processes and looks at life. We've been to like tons of events together, and he's like a drinking buddy. So we'll just sit down, have some tequila, have some beer, and just talk. And it goes from philosophy, martial arts, all kinds of shit. But it really changed my outlook about how to interact with people online. I try anyway to look at it from whatever that person's throwing at me, it's about them. It's not about me. And sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow because it doesn't feel good to have people say negative things to you.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you mean, yeah.
But again, I could have one or two problems. I can have this person being negative and then I'm negative back, and all of a sudden now I'm upset about what they said, and I am now upset because I feel the need to get some type of verification from them that I'm better. But who gives a shit? Like I started to look at it just like more like just numbers on a screen. It's just somebody getting their own shit out. It's nothing new. Since the dawn of the internet, people have been using it to complain about life. And that's okay for them. That's what they need in their life at the moment to make them feel good. And that's sad, but why should I engage that and feel the same? I don't need to, you know?
Robin Black, he said. No, I think I know who you're talking about. If I can describe him, he has black hair or so.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think on Instagram he does these breakdowns, just 2 to 5 minute clips of a break of a fight or so. No, I know who you're talking about. Yeah. But I mean, I just never understood why people actually, yes, like you said, go out of their way to write probably a whole paragraph online just saying the most horrendous things about someone, especially when someone's doing something nice and kind and so on. I just really, I've never understood. I mean, I say that because I've grown in school and I was bullied a lot. I even remember the people who, to this day, I remember who they are, and they did it to me for just the whole time that I was in school. But I just never understood where do you get the time? As in, is it just so at the end of the day you feel satisfied, or you just done something to get some sort of stress off your chest, or what? I just never understood it.
It could be a billion things, man. Like there's no real one cause of people being horrendous to other people. Sometimes it's a control thing. Like you'll get a lot of people who go to school and wind up taking out their home life on other people. They learned through their parents that this is how we handle situations. So like let's say a father smacks around a mom or smacks around the kid. Well, who does the kid get to smack around? Like he's just a punching bag. So then he finds a way to be stronger, feel empowered by doing this to other people. And also that's a learned behavior. That's one thing that could happen. Another thing that could happen is some people are just evil. Like I know that sounds ridiculous. Like I know probably there's psychologists out there who might hear that and go, well, that's not exactly. Yeah, I mean, some people are just wired differently than others. We all are on some type of a spectrum of behavior, right? And again, some people could be 60% good and 40% bad, and some people could be 60% bad and 40% good in terms of their actions and how they handle things. Now, some people have compulsions, right? They just cannot help it. That is how they are wired. And some people even have those compulsions and want to stop. They don't want to act that way. They just can't physically stop themselves. It could be for a million different reasons, but at the end of the day, if we have the ability to control our actions, if we do, because some people don't, but if we do, we should be trying to control our actions for the better of things instead of trying to make things worse. Yeah. Like, and it's a simple question to ask yourself before you act. It's a very easy question. Right before you act on anything, act on an emotion, act on an impulse, just ask yourself, will this make things worse or better? Just go down that process. And like, you know, the old school, like count to 10 when you're mad, right? All that's for is just to make you think for a second longer before you go off and do something that might make things worse. So, you know, when I can't tell you how long it took me to break that habit of when someone said something negative, immediately say something negative back. Like it took a while because there'd be times where I'd be like typing something out and then I'd be like, man, what is this? Where's this going to go? Yeah. Like this person's not going to change their mind. No. This person might not even mean what they're saying. They might just be trying to get a rise out of you.
Yes.
You know, so now my favorite thing to do is just restrict people. Like if anybody's not familiar, there's a button on Instagram that's a restrict button. It's my favorite button ever because what winds up happening is someone will say something and it could be anything, right? But if it's one of those things where it's a little over the top, like I don't necessarily want to see something negative all the time. And people are very self-centered online. They forget, like, especially if you have, like, I have 500,000 followers on Instagram. So they only think about themselves when they say negative shit. So they assume, oh, well, you know, you got a lot of people online. You should be able to take it. I thought you'd have thicker skin. Well, yeah, like if it was just you being an asshole, like, it's not how that works. Like that you're only thinking about you in this conversation. Those kind of people are the same kind of people who yell at comedians while they're on stage and think it's like a part of the act. Like, I promise you, the comedian wants you to shut the fuck up. Yeah, you laugh at the jokes, you clap. If they engage, you engage back. But other than that, you sit down, you drink your drink, and you shut the fuck up. Laugh at the comedy, right? If you're the kind of person that thinks like yelling at a comedian on stage is a part of the show, you're fucking wrong and you're a dick, right? It's the same thing with like people online. So they feel like because they're only worried about them and they're only thinking about themselves from their perspective and how you should feel about yourself. Well, if I were you, I'd feel this way. You don't fucking have a clue how I would feel. Yeah. You're not me and I'm not you. So when people like constantly are throwing venom, I'll hit that restrict button. And then what winds up happening is to them on their end, on their screen, everything appears as normal, but no one else can read their comment but me and them. And so they're just talking to themselves. And this like, and every time it never fails. Anytime someone has crossed a line, anytime I see like, it's like, it'll say restricted comment and I can click on it and read it if I want. Sometimes I'll click on them and see what they have to say. Always negative. That's just who those people are. Like there's a reason that I put them in this like little quiet place where they can feel better about themselves. They can spit their venom. Hell, they can help my algorithm by leaving a comment. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I don't necessarily need to hear that all the time. It's not healthy for anyone to hear negativity 24 hours a day. It's not healthy.
No, that's not so no. Rob, talking to you, it's like your knowledge, like your, as in anyone is spoken to you, well, at least let me say for myself, it's like you know a lot more than what you do, which was the mixed martial arts combat sports thing. Before you went into this, as in, were you at university? As in, did you study anything to do with the mind, like say psychology?
Nah, man, I've just been in the martial arts industry since I was like 12. It's been my only real career. I mean, I've had little odd jobs here and there, but martial arts industry has been pretty much it. And I absolutely love it. I still do. I still love it. I think there was probably maybe a year or two there where I absolutely hated it. And I didn't want that. Like it was bad because like you have to, again, seeing nothing but negative and talking about nothing but negative things all the time is not healthy. And my entire job is to see all of the evil going on in this industry and call it out so you can clean it up. But that equal 24-hour bombardment of pedophilia or murder or fraud, and it was just constant. Then after a while, it took me a second to sit back and go, man, like, do I even want to do this shit anymore? Like, what is the positives? And then like I took about a year or two off of training, like really hardcore. I train here and there. But I used to be the guy that was in the gym every day. You know, from the time I was like 12 to about 25, Monday through Saturday, I was in the gym. I was going to be there. I was going to train. I was going to be the best I could at this art. Then after a while, it's like I started thinking to myself, like, why? Like, why? I literally have spent my entire life on a dojo floor, and I didn't get to experience all of these other things because my mind was so single focused on just training martial arts. And so I took a little bit of time to like go out and just do other things in the world. And it was great. It was fucking awesome. And like I didn't even miss it a little bit. I was like, God, I wish I was in the gym right now. No, I had been doing this shit for well over 15 years at that point. Like, and I was like, you know what? I'm good. Like, you know, April will mark 26 years in the industry. 26. And I think it was like 4 years ago where I like took a little bit of time off for myself. So I guess I was in there for over 20 years before that. And so like 2 decades of just being dedicated to one specific thing and task. Yeah, that shows a lot of discipline, but it also doesn't show a lot of versatility in the world. You know,
Yeah, okay.
martial arts is important for self-defense. It's an important tool to help you with a lot of other things in life. But it only works if you look at it not just in the form of kicking and punching. You know, like you can apply martial arts to a lot of other things. So like my college was martial arts. That is what I did. So like, for instance, if you just looked at like a knee on belly, right? If anybody out there does jujitsu and you have like a 300-pound dude driving his knee into your sternum, grabbing you by the collar, grabbing you by the pants leg, and trying to get his knee all the way into your spine, and you're the person on bottom, you do a lot of thinking while you're down there. Start thinking, man, how did I mess up to get here? How can I get out of this? But then eventually you do get out, whether it's because you were submitted, whether it's because you actually escaped, whatever the case may be, you get out. It's over. And then you start looking at the world differently because you can apply this to other scenarios. I can always say, at least that's not happening right now. Somebody cuts me off in traffic. I don't fucking care. Why do I give a shit? They can't hear me yell at them.
Yes, yeah.
Again, they cut me off. All right, that happens. Did we get into an accident? No. Then we move on with fucking life. I don't give a shit, right? That person's a dick. But all right, they're getting to where they, who knows? Maybe that person has to get somewhere because their father's dying of cancer, right?
Yes,
And
yeah.
they have to get there as fast as possible. But if I only think about this from my perspective, how selfish is that? So, like, okay, they did their thing, whatever's going on with them, nobody's harmed. We move on with life. At least it's not a 300-pound guy sitting on my sternum trying to drive his knee through my chest, you know? So you can apply a lot of martial arts
Yeah.
to a lot of things in your life. And I think that it opens up your mind a little bit to experience life a different way through trial by fire and combat. You know, there's a lot that you learn about people through fighting them. There's a lot you learn about yourself through fighting people. I mean, what's the one thing that most fighters do at the end of any fight? Fight's over, bell's rung, someone's announced a winner. What do most fighters do when it's over?
As in, it's there in that ring.
They're still in the ring. Everybody's in the ring.
They walk back to their corner, and well, God, I don't want to sound stupid answering this question. Something I should know. They both raised their hands as if they thought they won the fight.
I mean, usually they hug.
Okay, or shake hands.
Yeah,
Depends if they don't generally dislike each other.
Yeah, I said usually. Like, there's definitely cases, right? But even in cases where there were people who truly did hate each other, they walked over and showed respect because they just had a moment together that most people will never experience. And unless you've ever been in the ring with someone and actually fought someone in combat while a lot of people were screaming and yelling, and you guys were the center of attention in that moment, you'll never know what that feels like. Like, you'll have people from the outside looking at that as barbaric or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, they don't know because they've never experienced it. There's something special that happens when you fight another human being, and it's a moment of honesty. It's this beautiful moment of honesty between you and another human being. Like, whatever's happening, that is who you are in that moment. You are that person. Everything comes out. Everything's laid out on the table. Most people will never experience that level of honesty with another person. And when you're done with a fight, there's a huge relief. Like, you both came out on the other side. Whether one person got knocked out, submitted, something broken, you still come out on the other side. It's very, very, very rare for two people to go into a combat sport and one person dies. Has it happened before? Yeah, but it's super rare. Like people die walking out their house and slipping on the wet concrete and hitting their head. So like it's super rare for combat sports for someone to die. So it's a scary thing because leading up to it, your mind is just racing
Yeah.
of all the what ifs and all the pressures and all these things, right? But when you're done, it's just like, oh, it's over. All right, let's go get a beer. Like it's this beautiful moment of relief. It's very,
Yes, yeah.
whether you won or lost, it's over. You both made it out the other side, win, lose, or draw. And I think that that's a cool thing. I think there's a lot to learn from it.
Would you be happy to reconnect in about just 2 minutes? The limit has come on again.
Yeah, sure, not
If
a
you have the
problem.
time. Like I'll be super quick this time.
Yeah, not a problem, dude.
Sure.
All right.
Be right back. He's been in the news, and I think he's going to be in the news ongoingly because of what's he's been in a little bit of bother. You know, him and his brother were successful kickboxers. Well, I think he was at least. Um, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. No idea.
Are you talking about Andrew Tate?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. This kind of links back to the conversation we kind of started out with at the beginning about the morality, liking this person for one thing, but disliking them for something else. What what do you think about him? I think I will admit there's certain things he will say probably outlandishly and brashly, that I agree with, but when he said certain things about the trafficking, so on, that's the reason why I moved to Romania. I think probably he kind of shot himself in the foot, probably unknowingly.
Um, it's weird because my first interaction with Andrew Tate, I don't remember ever having an actual conversation with him. But I do know that there was a time where I was going through, every once in a while I'll do this just to see who follows me and stuff like that. Because if you go to like Instagram, you can see like there's a follower count. And so after like a Rogan mention or something like that, sometimes I'll have a lot of celebrities who follow the page. And sometimes I'll find celebrities that I like am fans of, right? Sometimes it's a celebrity I've never heard of. So what I'll do is I'll click on that and I'll just scroll through and see until I see a blue check mark. I'll click on it and just hit follow. Scroll, click on it, hit follow. Scroll, click on it, hit follow. And I'll just do that so that way I can kind of keep up with the people who are in the know, because that's a very good way of networking. See somebody who happens to follow your page, you have mutual interests, you go, oh man, like, oh, so-and-so follows my page. Okay. So I'm going and doing the blue check mark thing. Anyone with a blue check mark, I'm following. And then eventually, like, he made a post or something of like him doing nunchucks. And anybody who knows me knows I fucking love nunchucks, right? So I like leave him a message, fellow chucker, like hoping to start a dialogue. Now, at this point, I have no fucking idea who he is.
Yes.
Like, never heard him speak, just saw a guy who I happen to follow who had a blue check mark who's doing nunchucks, right? So then that was it. I move on. Of course, he didn't respond. I move on, and it was like a year or two later, and all of a sudden I'm on a live. And while I'm on live, somebody hops on the live and they go, how could you possibly be friends with this guy, Andrew Tate, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I don't even know who the fuck that is. And they were like, you follow him? I'm like, yeah, I follow a lot of people. I don't know who that is. I'm like, it's not how this shit works, right? It's the same like trick that I do when it comes to like getting more people to follow my page. Sometimes I just go to a hashtag like BJJ, TKD, karate. I'll go to the most recent posts with that hashtag and just like the first 8 photos or videos. Like, I didn't even look at your shit, to be honest. But at the end of the day, I did that just to wave to get more people to follow my page. Like, hey, I exist. That's all that is, right? So, and then I'll still get people who hop on who are like, oh my God, he liked my stuff. Like, yeah, like I did. But it's like it's playing the out, it's gaming the system. It's a job. I'm not saying I don't like certain people's stuff, but I'm saying most likely if you saw me like one of your posts, it's probably because I'm just trying to get more followers on my page. But anyway, so this person starts berating me about Andrew Tate. I was like, I don't know who this person is, and I don't fucking care who it is. Like, that's not me. I don't represent someone else just because I follow them. That's fucking stupid. So anyway, here we go. Like, fast forward. And then it was like last month, I think, maybe the month before. I did see that he was in jail and all that good stuff. I did hear about all that, but I don't he's not convicted yet, so I don't know what the fuck's going on. I just know he's arrested. The moment he's actually convicted, like, then we'll say, yes, he did this crime, but, you know, innocent until proven guilty. Like, I don't fucking know. I'm not the guy. I don't follow him around. I'm not a fanboy. I don't give a fuck that he even exists, to be honest. And he probably doesn't give a shit that I exist either. But I wind up seeing this video that he made, and that did spark my attention. And it was of what was a McDojo. And it was like a good gym versus a McDojo. And I just disagreed with everything he had to say. Like, it wasn't because of who he was. It was because the context of what he was saying. What he was saying was fundamentally not correct. And so I got a hold of every major gym, TriStar, Jackson Winklejohn, ATT, like all these major gyms. And I just asked them questions. And they universally agreed with me that he was just fucking wrong. Like, he was talking about a good gym being dirty. Like, and people were like, that's not what he said. You know, that he didn't mean like cleanliness. And like later on in that video, he clearly talks about cleanliness, by the way. But anyway, so it's like, no, a good gym is not dirty. Like, a good gym is kept clean.
Yes,
Why?
yeah.
Because you don't want staph infection, or you don't want ringworm, right? That's fucking ridiculous. Also, you don't want fight. He was talking about how a good gym has fighters hurt all the time. Like, no, the fuck it isn't. Like, if your fighter's hurt, he can't make it to the fight. Like, if you are there for self-defense and you're hurt, how could you defend yourself in that moment when your arm's in a sling? You're not more effective, you're less effective. So, like, he just said a whole bunch of shit I disagreed with. And then, so I made a video about this, right? And then it's astonishing to me how people view people as a cult of personality instead of actually listening to what they have to say. And again, I haven't listened to most of his shit, but I did listen to that video for sure. And when it comes to that particular video, he's just fucking wrong. I could care less who he is. It could have been fucking anybody said that same bullshit. I would have still done a video about him, because at the end of the day, he was wrong. I had confirmation proof from all the major gyms that they disagreed fundamentally with what he was saying. And it had nothing to do with it being Andrew Tate. It had everything to do with this person had said stupid shit. So, like, but people will blindly follow him, even when you provide evidence and facts to the contrary. Has he said some things that are right? I'm sure he has. I mean, people say shit that's right and people say shit that's wrong. It appears that he's a controversial person where he purposely tries to get a rise out of people. But it also appears that he's a very successful person because he's made an ass load of money. I guess he has some type of like how to be a man program where people follow him for like advice on how to be a man. Like, here's step one to being a man. You don't need to pay somebody to tell you how to be a man. Like,
yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
Like, be you. Who gives
Yeah.
a fuck if other people like it or not? Do you like Dungeons and Dragons? Play your ass. Play Dungeons and Dragons all day. Roll that I1D20. Enjoy yourself. Have a good ass time. If like someone calls you a nerd because of it, that says something about them, not about you. Fuck them. Be yourself. That's how you be a grown ass man. Like, you don't need someone to tell you how to live and how to act, because it will make you feel like you're better than other people. Be you. Like, I saw this motherfucker rip into people because they liked sushi. Like, you making fun of people because they like sushi? That's a stupid fucking thing to feel like, that you're going to base someone's manhood off of not liking sushi. I saw him, Rapper's Delight. Have you ever heard the song Rapper's Delight?
No,
You may have heard it, but anyway,
yeah.
he gave a hard time to somebody because he said that if you don't know the lyrics to something to the effect of, you're not a man if you don't know the lyrics to that song. Like, this is the person we're listening to as to what constitutes as being a man. Like, look, at the end of the day, if that's what works for him, that's awesome. And I'm sure that he does have some viewpoints that probably are very sound and very legitimate. But at the same time, he's just a human being. And I'm sure there are viewpoints out there as well that are incorrect. We're all shades of gray. So, like, I've never met the man. So at the end of the day, I don't have anything to base off of other than what he's put out there to the world. Now, he could be an amazing human being for all I know, and these charges could be wrong, but doesn't seem that way. But then again, we don't know until everything comes out. I know that right now, whatever his decisions were led him down the path of to where he is right now. So obviously something he did was not correct, because you know how many days I've spent in jail for shit? Fucking zero. You know why? Because I don't do stupid shit that will put me in jail. Like, you know, but there are people out there was amazing. Like, if you had a contradictory viewpoint, they would call you a simp. And I thought that was very ironic, is that for you thinking for yourself,
Yes,
that you're a simp. Like, no, you following someone blindly
makes you a
makes
simp.
you a simp. So it's a strange like dichotomy where he's convinced people, or I'm sorry, I don't know if he's necessarily convinced them. I think they may have convinced themselves because he has such a strong personality, and people can relate to that. A lot of people who don't have that need that, and that's okay. Sometimes they need that person who can be a little more brash and direct and say a lot of things that maybe they felt in their mind they should say. Doesn't make them correct, but it is empowering to some people, and if there's somebody out there who had a rough life and felt less than, and Andrew Tate said some shit, whether we believe it or agree with it or not, that made that person feel better about themselves, that's not a bad thing. I mean, good for them for feeling better, as long as that person doesn't go on to be abusive or a piece of shit, right? There could be good and bad to everybody, like I said before. But that's really the only interactions I've had with Andrew Tate. Wasn't even an interaction. It was just I saw a video about him talking about what a McDojo is, which is my entire job, and then I just disagreed fundamentally with what he said.
You see, that kind of you kind of started the how you kind of came across it. So there's a particular video he made, he uploaded online that you just fundamentally disagreed with. And I think anyone who's not even, let me say, a pure diehard, let's say, combat sports fan like yourself, or someone who isn't really that invested in sparring or nunchucks or whatever it is to do with combat sports, common sense would suggest that, well, any environment that people are going to be in, whether it's sleeping, whatever it's going to be for, you would want the environment to be clean. Why would you want it to be dirty anyway? Whether it's going to be a McDojo gym or a nunchuck, why would he say all the good? If a gym is good, it has to be dirty. Why would it be dirty? You wouldn't want it to be dirty. You wouldn't
he
be in
has
there.
like his own reasoning. Like he compares it to like the Apollo Creed gym in Rocky, and he's like, it's dirty, it's gritty. Like again, if anybody watches the video that he made, not the video response that I made, but the video that he made, he directly talks about cleanliness in the gym. And he talks about McDojos being clean. So he was like, yeah, you could have your dojo nice and clean. So he directly talks about cleanliness of a gym. I don't know why he would say what he said. Maybe he truly believes that a good gym should be a lot rougher. I think maybe his point could have been not what the words said. But your words directly affect people's perception of your words. Like if someone said certain things, like for instance, a good gym has people getting their arms broken, which is something else that he talked about in there. Like broken bones is a term that he uses. No,
are you kidding? Sorry. Once you've done this, please, can you send me the link for those videos? Because a good gym is where you get your arms broken. If somebody got their arms broken in any sort of combat sports or training, they'd probably be kind of discouraged to continue training or partaking in that sport ever.
Yeah, it's a very simple, hold on, I'd really like for you to hear what he had to say, because I think that it's fairly important in the context of this conversation, because
this is crazy.
About fighting, there's two kinds of fight gyms. And you have the traditional McDojo, like the karate gym, taekwondo, blah, blah, blah. You have the fight gyms. When you go into a real fighting gym, like a gym with real fighters, it's always like shitty. When you watch Rocky and you have like the Apollo gym, it's always shitty. And the reason it's shitty is because fight gyms don't make money. This is the thing. You have a choice when you open a martial arts gym. You either sell out and chase the money, or you train people to actually fight. So if you sell out and chase the money, you have a nice big dojo. You have everyone's got their karate suits and they pay for their suits, and everyone goes to their gradings and they punch air and no one gets hit. And they do their gradings and they pass and they buy a new belt. And you have these huge big classes full of people because it's nice and easy. No one gets hurt. No one breaks any bones. And you just get to sell suits and belts, and you can have a nice big clean dojo and make money. Well, if they actually get a real fight, none of them can fight. You think you can fight? I know karate, and then you come out of nowhere. People say karate with me. And you have fight gyms where you have guys turning up, breaking bones, hurting each other in sparring, fucking each other up badly. No one can stick at it. You don't have big classes. It's too hard. The fighters who do get really good, they were trying to make money fighting, so they ain't got much money. They can't pay for expensive gradings. They're paying the minimum. Fight gyms are broke, but they produce dangerous men. So you have a choice when you open a membership group. Do I sell out and make it a free for all, yay. Make it nice and easy. Set a bunch of fucking easy ass achievements that anyone can do. Give everyone their fake phony black belts, but in reality, none of them ain't shit. Or you create a fighter gym, a real gym where it's hard. And a lot of people don't make it. The ones who are left are fucking dangerous. That's the choice you have.
So the thing is, like, just going through, that's what he said, talking about what he said. He said that talked directly about fighters getting hurt and broken bones, right? So, like, you can hear that he says this. He talks about you can have a nice, clean dojo and everything's easy. He talks directly about the cleanliness of the dojo being related to a McDojo. He talks about something else that I think is important, which is why I wanted to get to it. He talks about you have a choice. You can open up this gritty, hardcore dojo without a lot of members and be broke. Or if you make money, you're a sellout. That's a choice. You could sell out and open up this like clean dojo and make everything easy. That's fucking dumb. That is fucking stupid. That is a very specific, I guess you could say, cliche in the martial arts industry that gets perpetuated. People think that if you open up a dojo, in order for your students to be good, somehow you have to be poor. And if you're making money in the industry, that's a bad thing. How many homeless people have we walked past and been like, you know what? That guy's probably good at martial arts. Fucking none. Yeah, how many homeless people have been hired for seminars to teach martial arts? None. Why? Because they're fucking homeless. Why? Because they mismanaged funds, they had issues, whatever the case was. It wasn't because they were doing so great financially. Meanwhile, this person who's worth millions of dollars, millions, has called everyone who makes money in their martial arts school a fucking sellout. So this hypocrite is saying, if you make money in your martial arts gym, you're a fucking sellout. He said there's only two choices. You could be a broke gym and create good fighters, or you can have a gym that makes money and produce shit fighters. That's him. That's his opinion. That's not right. Have you ever been to Jackson Winklejohn? Massive building, amazing fighters, world class, right? You ever been to ATT and Coconut Creek? Fucking massive, right? Have you ever been to TriStar? Nice big gym, great fighters. At the end of the day, that fundamentally is not correct. You know what all those gyms also have in common? Extremely clean. Walk into those training facilities and they're all very much clean. You know what else they have in common? Even though they have hard, rough training, yes, they're not constantly getting injured. They're not constantly injuring fighters. These are professionals. They cannot fight if they are injured. The goal is to train hard so that way you make it to your fight. And if you're talking about this in terms of self-defense, the goal is to train hard so that way you can still defend yourself. But if you train too hard, you wind up catching an injury, and that's the moment you have to defend yourself, you're fucked. You're going to lose. If your leg is broken, if your bones are broken, if you're too sore to be able to defend yourself, you're not going to be as effective. So the entire thought process there is just not correct.
Yes, yes. Rob,
it's baffling.
Rob, but the question that will be at the back of people's minds, even you know, the young men, which I'm sure are his target market, his target audience, the question will be, why would you say these? Just why would you say it? I think you're old enough to know better, so do better. I mean, why would you say? And then there's going back to the arrest. I mean, if you look at the sort of things he has said, there must be something in the arrest that happened, because the police would not have arrested him for no reason or without any lack of sufficient evidence. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'm not a cop and I don't follow the guy like that. So I have no clue what's going on with this shit. Like, I'm not like one of those people. It's like, oh my God, Andrew Tate exists. I need to follow everything going on with him. I don't know anything about this fucking dude. I know like a couple things that I've heard about his arrest. When in terms of like, I think sex trafficking. And I know what he said about the McDojo thing. And I watched a few of his other videos because I was doing a video about that just to see, like, give a fair opinion. Like, let me watch a couple of his videos to see some of the things that he said. And, like, I just found some of them outlandish, and they may be outlandish for the sake of being outlandish. Could be a character, very possible. Could be genuinely him. But at the end of the day, that's what he's pushing out into the world anyway. I mean, if I knew the guy personally, it'd be so much easier to speak on him. But I fucking don't. Like, if I was a fan or a hater, I'm neither one. I don't know this fucking dude. I know that video is wrong. That is not correct. Like, then, you know, and it's not just my opinion. I got opinions from a lot of different people. I literally have video of the head manager over at Jackson Winklejohn talking about how they handle their fighters. It's like 4 or 5 minutes of him talking in detail about keeping the gym clean and keeping his fighters safe. You know, I got James Boom Boom Mancini, who is over at TriStar, one of the coaches at TriStar Gym, talking about it's very important to make sure your gym is clean. I had John Hackelman, who was the coach for Glover Teixeira and for Chuck Liddell, two world-class martial artists who were both title holders in the UFC, talking about the importance of keeping your gym and your partners safe. So at the end of the day, who am I going to listen to? Like, yes, can Andrew Tate probably beat me up? Yes. I don't fucking care. Like, it doesn't magically make those words correct. Like, it just means that he could beat me. Doesn't mean that he's ever been to the UFC and talked with these coaches and fought with their fighters and shit like that, been to their gyms. I don't fucking know him. I don't know what he's done and what he hasn't. But at the end of the day, beating someone up, having the ability to do so, only matters in 2 times in your life. Matters when you have to defend yourself against somebody who's trying to hurt you. And it matters in competition when you're still having to defend yourself against someone who's trying to hurt you. That's it. There's never been a board meeting in the history of board meetings where there's the CEO, the CFO, the head of research and development. And they're all sitting down talking about how to make this multi-billion-dollar business better. And then all of a sudden the janitor walks in and they go, hold on, guys. Mark the janitor can beat us all up. Let's hear what Mark the janitor has to say. Like, no one's gonna fucking listen to him. Yeah. No one gives a fuck that he could beat up everyone. You know, how many times has the head of some type of major organization gone to a prison because he knew everyone in the prison could beat him up to ask them for advice? Never. Why? Because he doesn't fucking care that you could beat him up. That's only important in such a small aspect of life. Like, yeah. So it's, I don't know. I think it's astonishing to me that whenever people have differences of opinion, people just latch on to the personality of the person and not the context of what's being said.
God, it's a crazy time we're living in now. As long as you can get people's attention, I think that's how you manage to get away with saying a lot of stuff. I mean, people will call you up. I mean, in this case with Andrew Tate, well, it's like everything he's said before in the past, or probably everything he's done before in the past, is now catching up with him or so. Hit both him and his brother.
Maybe. I mean, like I said, there's shades of gray to people, man. Like, sure, there's people he's helped. I'm sure there are people out there in the world whose lives are changed for the better because he has existed in their life somehow, done something kind for them. But at the end of the day, like, he also probably done some shit and been wrong sometimes too. Like, I have a really hard time a lot of times looking at people as either really bad people or really good people. I think you could be the majority bad, but there's still some good in there. And I think you could be the majority good and there's some bad in there. Like, none of us can escape the good and bad of life. You fucking can't. Like, you know, it just doesn't work that way. And now, especially, we have cameras on everything people say and do. Like, you were talking about the Bobby Lee thing and the Kayla thing. Like, that's a very personal, intimate thing. And yes, they did choose to make that a public thing and discuss that live and discuss that publicly and stuff like that. But did they really have too much of a choice? Because eventually that's going to come out in the public. And then people are going to question them. Hey, how come you guys didn't bring this up on the podcast and the show? And then now their entire reputation is on the line because they tried to hide their personal life. That's no one's fucking business. Like, it's a very strange thing when you're in the limelight because there's constantly a camera on you. Yeah. You'll be able to find something that you said, like with a fine-tooth comb, and then somebody will go, wait, 5 years ago you said this, but then you said this over here. What do you mean your favorite color is blue? Over here you said your favorite color is orange. Like, bitch, maybe they changed their fucking mind. Why do we give a shit? Like, and especially like with people's personal lives, like, the only reason we even know about that is because other people stick a camera in their face all the fucking time, and eventually what winds up happening is it makes the news if you get popular enough. I mean, it's just a strange thing. It's all very strange. If you stick a camera on someone long enough, you're going to get something out of it.
Rob. Okay, just 2 more questions then, because you said you got a meeting or so this morning.
Yes.
So people are saying that this fight's not going to happen, but that's for the second question I'm going to ask you. But Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. Who do you think will take the win away from that fight?
Are they having another match? Are they fighting again?
Oh, yes, the UFC 287.
Oh shit! I didn't.
Yeah.
Goes to show you how much I pay attention. I didn't know there was going to be a rematch. It's tricky, man. Like sometimes you find somebody who's got your number. They kind of figured you out, and this is not the first time that they've fought.
No,
There's a history. So even before the UFC, there was a history there. Sometimes a fighter gets in your head, which is difficult because it becomes more of like a quicksand. You know, like even if they might not necessarily be better than you, they might have one or two techniques that can put you away, and that's all they need. You know, like but at the end of the day, it's a tough thing. I think that Izzy's been a follower of the page for a long time. He's been supportive of the page for a long time. I've met him at the MMA awards in Vegas a couple times. He's very, very cool individual. I liked the way he handled his loss. I think that was very professional. He didn't bitch. He didn't moan. He didn't make an excuse. He just said, I lost. And then he moved on with the fucking day, which he's done twice now that I've seen in the UFC. Like when he tried to move up weight classes and he got handled. He got to the press conference like it was just another day. Like he didn't cry. He wasn't like emotionally broken. He's a very mentally tough dude. It will all be based on if he learned from his previous losses. That's the only thing that's going to dictate whether or not he's going to win. If he did not learn anything from his previous losses and his previous matches with him, he will lose again. So if he's able to learn from that and he's able to change his game plan, change some strategy, change some tactics, then he can win. He has the ability to win. As of right now, if I had to put money on it, I'm going to put money on Pereira. Like that's where my money would go. He's got a track record of beating Adesanya. So far, he's doing a fucking great job about being able to beat him. Like, even if he could fight a million other fighters and lose a million other fights, sometimes you just got somebody's number, and it seems like he might have him pegged a little bit. He might have figured out his game and how his timing is and all that good stuff. But if I had to put money down right now, I'd be on Pereira. But I'd have to see a little bit more footage of his training camp, what's going on, how he's adapted, what he, you know, if you're Izzy, to be honest, like what you probably should do, go to the fucking ground. Like, I know that doesn't sound like a game plan that a lot of people would expect, but that's exactly why you do it. Like, train your fucking takedowns over and over and over and over and over again, right? Train those takedowns as hardcore as humanly possible, get that jiu-jitsu up. And of course, Izzy's known as probably one of the best strikers there in the UFC. But if you're getting beat striking by someone else, stop striking. You know, like if that person is consistently beating you in your game, do another game. You know, like do the game that you will most likely get you a win. And it might not even be an exciting way of winning. I mean, if you're able to secure a takedown, keep top dominant position for the majority of the round, and then stay away from the other person, that's boring as shit. Yeah, but it wins fights. I mean, GSP used to do the same thing over and over and over again. He would double leg takedown, and he would just pretty much chill and guard for a really long time. I mean, DC had the same kind of thing where he would secure a takedown and he would just like grind on people from the guard, not even attempt to pass. Doesn't need to. Like he's so good at being active in the guard that he was able to just beat the shit out of people while in their guard, which is extremely impressive. To tire someone while they're on their back, basically just defending, and still make them exhausted is really impressive. You know, so you don't have to be like a Khabib with your takedowns where you secure a takedown, you get to like a figure four on the person's thighs and instead of mounting and then beat the shit out of them against the cage. You don't have to do that. You could just get the takedown, get a dominant position, ride that timeout, do it again. Get the takedown, dominant position, ride that out until you get the victory. Like to the fighters, that's boring. Or to the crowd, that's boring. Do you think he gives a fuck if you were entertained or not? He's still going to get paid. He's still going to get the title. Like he could walk out of there and everyone could boo, and he would still be like, "Meh,
you're still on.
I'll cry on this belt."
You're right. Because for me, it's because both of them, especially of course Pereira's proven that 3 times now, that obviously against one of the toughest strikers in the sport in the world, he's very good. But for me, I mean, I can't decide, but for Izzy, if you've lost this person several times, 3 times now, it'll stay in your head that on the next opportunity you get to beat them, you'll be smart about how you attack your opponent, how you defend yourself as well. But I don't know, you will kill yourself. You will actually do everything in your power, use everything in your arsenal to defeat this opponent, because they're going to be in your head for so long. You understand what I mean?
It's tough. Like, look at John Jones versus DC, like their legacy of fights.
Yes.
Like when you look at John Jones versus DC, John Jones just simply was better. That's all there is to it. He was just better. He's better than a lot of people, but specifically, he knew how to stop DC's game plan every time. There was one fight, as a matter of fact, it might have been their second one, where when they fought, DC got to the point where he knew he was losing. Everyone knew he was losing, including DC and John Jones at the moment. And DC's only game at that point was just to try to secure a takedown, just one takedown, because in his mind, I guess that would have been some type of a victory, you know, like a moral victory. Like, I got a takedown, right? And I think he did get a takedown eventually, but I think that it cost him the entire fight because he refused to give up on that idea and that thought. And of course, we're not the men in the ring at that point. Like, we don't know what's going through his head. Maybe he was like, if I can just get this takedown and keep him there, I might be able to do A, B, and C. But that's not what it looked like. From the outside, it looked like he had given up on the win and only wanted the takedown. And it didn't matter the detriment of what was going to happen to himself to get it. He was willing to go through everything just to get that one takedown. And that's all he wanted. That's what it looked like. That's what it felt like. Now, it might not have been what's going on in his head, but he got on this autopilot, right? He almost accepted defeat for the sake of the takedown. And that John Jones just played that all day. He just enjoyed that every moment of stuffing every takedown, because that's exhausting to shoot in for a takedown and it gets stuffed. And then over and over and over, because you're putting in all this work and all this effort and then get nothing out of it. That's very defeating. So, but it's the opposite now. We're not dealing with someone who's trying to get a takedown. We're dealing with two very highly effective strikers.
Yeah.
One seems to have the other one pegged. At this point, do you give up on the hope that you can outstrike the person for the sake of your ego? Like, you can't go in 3 times in a row, lose 3 times, because I do believe they fought 3 times off the top of my head. I do believe he's lost. Not in the UFC, but I do believe before. I think he's been knocked out by Pereira, kickboxing, if I remember correctly. More asking.
Alex Pereira.
Yeah, like when Izzy fought him previously kickboxing.
It was. They fought in kickboxing. I think even then Pereira still won in both matches.
So if we're talking about like a consistency and a track record, the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. So don't do that. Go in with a different game plan. Try to do something a little bit different. Try to see if something you can do will open up a door to victory. But if he goes in doing the same thing that he did last time, chances are good it's probably not going to work out in his favor. You know, and I'm a Izzy fan. I'm a fucking fan, but I'm a realist. Like, don't keep doing the same shit. Like, and again, I'm not the guy in the ring. He might say, fuck you. Your advice sucks. Okay, cool. Whatever. That's just my opinion.
Okay. I really need to change the source of platform I used to do these podcasts. Can we just reconnect just one last time?
Unfortunately, I have a meeting in 2 minutes, so I'm not going to be able to hop back on right now.
Okay. If you can quickly, you can tell us, tell me anyway, McGregor versus Chandler, do you think that fight will happen at all? Because I've heard at least for the upteenth time that the fight may not even happen because McGregor probably is not what he used to be, like, you know, drinking and partying and so on.
I mean, it depends on what the contract says. Like, you got to figure if Dana White, because aren't they both now coaches on The Ultimate Fighter?
Yes, but I mean, the fight itself, I mean, what after, I mean, will it even happen? I mean, will McGregor, will he be able to compete?
Usually a part of it. Usually. The coaches for The Ultimate Fighter usually build up to a fight between them two as well. So I would imagine, yes, in my opinion, the fight probably will happen. I would be curious, though, because McGregor gained a lot of weight, and it didn't look like it was just water weight. It looked like maybe he was on the juice. So whether or not he was on the cycle or not, is he able to get off the cycle in time? You know, they changed the USADA rules about the picogram thing. You know, if you have like under X amount in your system, they're cool with it now. You know, USADA also changed it so that way weed is no longer on the list of what do they call it? Performance enhancing drugs. So, I mean, if Conor McGregor's drinking and smoking, that doesn't mean he still can't fight. It would be dumb, but I mean, what would he make weight? All that good stuff. I mean, we don't know. At the end of the day, I have a feeling McGregor is he makes his decisions based on will this be financially successful for me.
Hold on.
I think go ahead.
I just play it up. So no, it stopped recording midway. So yeah, you do believe that if the fight if it does happen, okay, there's a contract, so that it has to happen anyway, and the person will be benefiting the most out of it, more or less. Or anyway, for them, doesn't really matter because they made the millions, they made all the fame, they're a superstar.
I don't think McGregor cares.
Yeah, exactly.
If it financially benefits him, cool. Like, do you think he cared that he lost the Mayweather fight? He doesn't give a shit. Like, he went out there, they sparred basically.
Yeah.
And, you know, they put on a show. It was entertaining for what it was. And then they all got paid millions and millions of dollars. You know, like at the end of the day, I truly believe that McGregor just cares about the bottom line. I think he's a smart businessman, very smart businessman, as a matter of fact. But he understands that as long as he can keep bringing in the checks, he could kind of get away with whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah.
I mean, he literally punched an old man in a bar for not drinking his alcohol. You know, like that's not sane, proper behavior. Which is ironic because the alcohol is called Proper 12. So, but not proper. You know, the motherfucker threw a cart, a dolly.
Yeah, I remember Khabib's coach. Yeah.
You know, it got glass all over people who were not even involved in his bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, like potentially could have caused people's careers. A piece of glass gets in your eye, which I do believe one of the fighters did get glass in their eye. And then now what? You lose your eye? Because of why? Your fucking temper tantrum? Like, how many times, like, again, he does not give a fuck except for that money. If he did, he wouldn't act the way he does. Like, I even remember, like, I guess there was like a video of him, like, getting a blowjob. He just, like, films the top of his head.
Are you kidding me? That didn't happen.
He doesn't fucking care. Like,
that didn't happen.
I said, I do believe, but there was definitely a video. Hold on.
No, because the timer's got like 3 minutes left.
Won't take very long.
What is? Okay, could we do anything on that? This is our performing blowjob on Instagram.
Now I don't know about you, but where I come from,
yeah.
Someone's head is in your lap and you have your hand on the back of their head, that typically signifies a blowjob. Now, I don't know, maybe blowjobs are different where you come from, but again, like that's a weird thing to post. Like, even if it was just suggesting it, like, all right, put it on your OnlyFans, man. People don't give a fuck nowadays. Everything's loosey-goosey. Get paid for it or whatever, right? But at the end of the day, he's going to do whatever he does because he's making money doing it. Like, and as long as people keep paying him, he's going to keep doing stupid shit. Why? Because it makes him more money. It makes him more controversial. It puts more asses in seats, you know?
All right. Quickly tell me, just in one word, who would win the fight, Chandler or McGregor, if it does happen?
Chandler. I do believe Chandler would win that fight. I think that right now, I think McGregor has a lot of ring rust. I don't think he was winning the last fight before his leg broke. He looked very rusty. You know, other people might disagree with me. I personally just don't think he was winning that fight up until the leg break. I think he was getting caught with some things that he normally wouldn't get caught with. And age is a bitch. Like, as you get older, you know, you don't function the same way you used to. His game plan, his footwork is very much like a sport karate footwork. So he's always up on his toes moving. That gets a little harder to maintain over long rounds when you get older. So I don't know. In my opinion, I do not foresee him winning, but that's my opinion.
Same here. Same here. Rob, thank you so much for coming on the show. And quickly, guys, if you did enjoy this episode, don't forget to leave a like. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and you can also catch the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and on Google Podcasts. Rob, thank you so much. I definitely look forward to seeing you back on the show as well. Take care.
Man, thank you for having me. Later.
See ya.